Hi guys, welcome back. I've decided to for us to jump in to Fusion again and just take a look at all the new renders we have. I have changed some settings in Houdini since I rendered this out, but it's good for us to just sort of compile everything we've done into this comp for now, and then I can do a sort of final video after this where I go back and recap everything that's happening in the Houdini scene and then recap what would be the final comp. So once again, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I'll talk about stuff you should be thinking about, and the best way probably to bring some of these layers together. And like I said, I'll save all the recap stuff for the next video. So here I have the environment. So let me just set this to fit. So we can have a look at all these layers. You'll see this has the simulated debris, which I think works quite well. It does what it needs to do. And then we have the raw character pass with no lighting from the portal. These ones I've rendered at a lower than full resolution, that's why I have these resizes. This is the character pass with the portal light, which is also working quite well. That's the environment with the portal light, and then we have the dust and the particles. Now you can see the dust was taking quite long, so if I look at the alpha, there's a lot of low density dust here. So that was taking ages to render, so it stops here at 75, which is fine because I only want to see the dust pretty much while the light is shining. So if we look at that without looking at the alpha, I only want to see it there, and by there it should be gone anyway. And then our sandy particles, and I really like this layer. So that's what we've got. So let's basically try and comp that together and see how that all looks with the current state of the portal. So we have this, that's great. We just merge directly on top our character so that we have that base down. I've already ordered this in order of where I think it should go, so the dust and the particles will just go after we've sorted out the whole environment and the lights. So these are our base renders with absolutely no effects except for these pebbles. Then we have these two, so I'm going to merge the character light on top of the character first. And I might have to mask the character out of the environment light because I only had the character as a phantom. So let's see how that will work. So all we need to do is I'm going to actually boolean this. You can do this in Nuke the same way, you just merge and select add. So I'm just setting the boolean to add. There's our character, and we're just adding the portal light on top. And then we need to do the same with the environment. Well, I should actually merge this on underneath. That would make more sense, I think. So what do we have? Environment and environment portal light, character and character portal light. So that makes a bit more sense. There's some weird stuff going on here. I think because I'm also adding the alpha. Yeah, so I just set those booleans to add the light, but not to add the alpha together. And once again in Nuke it would be the same. With the merge, you just switch off the alpha of the A, or the foreground layer. So that actually comes together fine. And you can see our characters being matted out by that map object we made. So I don't think we need to do anything fancy really to get this environment scene to work well. Unless one of these layers doesn't work. So I'm just going to merge, for starters, just directly merge the dust on top. Well, it's... So I don't like the way it's merging here. What I could do, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to add the environment portal light render on top of the dust. But I'll mask the dust out by itself. So, because I just need the light to be shining through the dust. Like I'm looking at this and it's possible that that is actually physically correct, but obviously we don't have the dust volume. I didn't include it in the environment render as a phantom object, and that's one of the reasons when I have access to a render farm, I actually like to render as much in the camera as I can. So I would have maybe one render that contains all of these passes. In this case, I didn't think to add the dust as a phantom, but I need the dust to be very subtle and soft anyway, so I'll just merge that portal light back on top. So add it just into the dust layer. And I could also have just, say, burned in the dust slightly. So much the same. And then we have these particles. I can hardly see. So I'm going to boost these up. So that's the basis. And now I just want to get the values right, because you can't trust your geolights, and well, obviously we're changing the portal so much in the comp. So yeah, this is green basically. Now that I see the portal, this is completely green. So we need to find those lighting layers. probably just put down a color corrector for both of them. So I just want this to be, could be a little more, or it could be slightly dimmer and then a lot bluer. So I'm just eyeballing this right now because in general, especially with blue magical stuff, it always tends to be slightly turquoise. So, and I fall into the same trap, but the amount of times you see basically a turquoise effect where the artist has actually been aiming to do a completely magical blue color, is everyone does it. So don't be scared. You need to really try and like push away as much of that green as you can and add as much blue as you can, because a saturated blue is going to make a much more sort of, it's, people don't know it until they see it, but it makes a big difference to the effect feeling magical. So in this case, just adding a little bit of blue has pretty much made the difference. I could remove more green, but then I have to start removing some red, and that's too far. I'll do the same for the character. And then I need to make sure my dust and my points get the same color. And I actually want to slightly adjust the color of, I don't have this boolean. I'll put that on the dust particles as well. Do I need to? Yeah, I think the dust and the particles and the volume are looking a little bit dull. So I'm just going to boost the blue on these as well. Just enough to get them to feel like they're part of the same lighting situation. And the light in Houdini hasn't done enough. So if I disable and re-enable this, you can see just that slight blue tint, especially down here. Just really helps it sit. And I think the dust is kind of benefiting from that as well. I'm also going to just try gain it up a bit. Or gamma up, gain down. Just to like flatten it out and make sure some of those super low density stuff is visible. That looks pretty good. I'll save. So we have some stuff we need to key out. So still a little bit of merging issues here. If you can see, there's a slight dark area, and it's still coming from this dust pass. Yeah, I should actually color correct this before I add the environment light, because what I'm doing now is I'm darkening it down, which means I'm darkening the environment light down as well. There's a few other things here I would like to tweak, and I am going to play with options with the portal itself. But this is enough to kind of see how I work. After this point, it's basically looking, like I said before, looking at the final result and then just trying stuff. So maybe make the background of the portal effect brighter, maybe take it away again, maybe make some of the hot light, the highlight layers I made, make them super bright, stuff like that, and just gauge it while I'm looking at it. These embers are a bit crazy. I think they work for the first half, and then after the portal disappears, they just hang around for too long. So some of the stuff, I think, as an example quickly, is what I'm looking at is the way the portal looks over this door. So one of the options I have with the portal in general is I could just burn it on. So you do lose some of that dark, some of the dark particles, which I do like. But in general, burning on is a lot of magical stuff will be burnt on, because the idea is that the magic is completely emissive. So you usually make a bunch of emissive layers and then make one or two effects that are shaded normally that you can blend in. So usually when you're working with the brighter, super saturated layers, you can just burn those in. In this case, I feel like I've lost too much by fully burning it. So my other option is I could take this environment try and get some contrast in here and then blur it. And then I'll add that on top. Of the portal and mask it out by itself. So just faking some of that sort of backlighting. Maybe that's a bit too much, but I think you can see how successful it can be of just letting the effect really feel like it's being affected by the environment and the lighting. It's just adding a little bit of that spilt over blur or light. So it's faking the spilling of the light through the door onto any points that are dark. So I think that actually works very well. That's me just switching it on and off. So I don't think this is too far away. The main thing I need to do is key off this layer, which appears to be all of it. So I could even key that, just key this here. So that does that. And then maybe mess around with keying down. Say I put down a brightness and contrast here. or I think this other layer was a worse offender. I felt like it's too visible for too long. So one thing, and this is a personal preference problem, but it's also something you should be considering to get an effect to really pop. And at this point, when it's closed, it would be good if it brightened up slightly, so as if it gained some energy as it shut, and then I can have it fading off. And I want to fade it off a little bit quicker than it is here. So let's say here, I'll go a few frames, and there can be at its brightest. And I need to ramp this up. So it's not really doing anything, and then suddenly brightens up. It's pretty subtle. So I'm going to do the same on this ramp, kind of just messing around now. Well, I can never remember how to disconnect one of these from the other side. Pretty sure there's something pretty self-explanatory here. Isolate. Nope. Can't remember for the life of me. But I could have that pretty sharply. So sharply going bright, and then sharply going darker, and then slowly fading off. So when we look at that after the glow, it should become a bit more visible. I could just see there's something brightening up. So I could copy this, and here in Fusion you can right click and say, no wait, you copy and then you paste instance. So I could put that onto a few layers, say onto this one and onto the embers. I wanted those to die earlier as well. So I go Control C, paste instance. So that's them keying down. So I'll go through and do stuff like this, just kind of clean it up, tweak layers where I'm not happy with it, key the gain down till they don't exist, if that makes sense. Make sure I have parts of the environment affecting the effects in a realistic way that helps them sit in the environment. And then just experiment with different looks for the portal. This is pretty much what I had in mind, so I might just play around with some layers in between and see if there's anything interesting that comes out of it. So that's almost done. I'll end this video here, and we can see the current state of this effect playing through. And then in the last video for this week, I'll go through a big recap of all the updated effects on the Houdini side and everything I changed, and then the final comp for the portal, and then onwards to week 3. So I'll see you guys in the next video.